doing, y'all boys, man? OgMk, and we're back with another video, man. Now I know we've been going for about a week, 7-8 days, but it's not. I didn't want to leave you guys, but I had a family vacation. No, you know what I'm saying? No games, no none. So there was gonna be no recording going on, but we're back and I got y'all. But real reasons America's new Iron Dome terrifies the world. So there's really about to be a dome. Hey man, the Simpsons and all these things, man. Hey man, hurry up and show us what's next. But I ain't gonna hold y'all boys no longer. All I ask you guys to do is to like, comment, subscribe. And I ain't gonna hold you no longer. Let's just go ahead and get right into the video, man.
Klaxons wail across a quiet neighborhood as a nearby fenced-off hill lined with barbed wire and armed guards suddenly erupts to life. The ground trembles and missile silo doors slide open, revealing 30-foot-long interceptors locked and loaded. Then a blast of fire and thunder as the missiles scream into the sky, turning into fiery comets within seconds. Across the nation, in every major city, silo doors yawn open, unleashing dozens of interceptors in a desperate bid to stop the incoming attack. The country is under siege, and the Iron Dome system is the only shield standing between survival and...
Oh, so the Iron Dome is to... Okay, Alright.
And annihilation. But this isn't Israel. This is America, the America of tomorrow. Ask any military historian why the United States is a global superpower, and they'll point to two key advantages: resource independence and regional dominance. The U.S. is a leading oil and gas producer, the world's breadbasket, and home to vast reserves of coal, iron, and other critical materials for modern industry. And when additional resources are needed, they can be easily sourced from trusted neighbors like Canada and Mexico. Beyond its natural wealth, America has benefited from two powerful shields: the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. For over 2 centuries, these vast bodies of water have kept conflict far from its shores. These oceans served as insurmountable barriers, making a direct attack on the U.S. nearly impossible. This held true during both World Wars. While Europe was ravaged by destruction, American industry and economy surged, emerging stronger after each conflict. As the Cold War began, the Soviet Union was still rebuilding from the devastation inflicted by the Nazis. Meanwhile, the U.S., untouched by war, had a massive economic head start, one the Soviets would never overcome. Distance has long been America's greatest ally, shielding it from direct threats and allowing it to project power far beyond its borders. This is why the U.S. maintains a global military presence, ensuring that potential conflicts are dealt with long before they reach American soil. It's also why the U.S. has invested heavily in its vast network of allies, forging partnerships that have made it one of the most powerful nations in history. At its core, America's strength isn't just in its military or economy, it's in how many friends it has in its corner. But all of that is about to change.
Strength in numbers.
And America's traditional war-proof barriers are disappearing. In December of 2024, the U.S. Air Force delivered an unexpected gift to America, a sobering glimpse into the future of warfare. In a report simply titled, "The Department of the Air Force in 2050, the world woke up to a stark reality about the conflicts of the coming decades. While its purpose was to shape policy today and ensure the Air Force of tomorrow is ready for war, the report ultimately served as something else, a wake-up call to just how vulnerable the country will soon be to enemy attack. America's enemies are rapidly developing technologies that will put the homeland at risk for the first time in 2 centuries.
China.
The Air Force put it best themselves. In the future, nowhere will be safe from enemy attack, not even the homeland. This has ignited a major debate within the Department of Defense, how to protect the America of the future, and whether a missile defense system, akin to an Iron Dome, is the solution. But before understanding America's future missile shield, we need to understand the threat. There's no clearer example of the growing threat than China's People's Liberation Army Rocket Force, or PLARF. Originally created to manage China's nuclear arsenal, the PLARF has since expanded its role significantly, far beyond what would typically justify an entire military branch. For comparison, in the United States, nuclear weapons are overseen by the National Nuclear Security Administration, NNSA, a government agency, not an independent military force. But the real mission of the PLARF has always been singular in focus: to keep the American Navy and Air Force far from the South Pacific. And not only did they succeed, but they may have completely rewritten America's strategy in the region. Established in 2015 as a replacement for the 2nd Artillery Corps, the PLARF immediately began developing and testing new anti-ship missiles. At first, these missiles had a range of just over 100 miles, enough to push back most of America's surface ships from Chinese shores. But there was one major exception: America's aircraft carriers. China closely studied both of America's wars against Iraq and learned a critical lesson: never let the U.S. build up its combat power in theater. They realized that the key to victory wasn't just about having a strong military. It was about denying the U.S. the ability to project its power in the first place. If they could keep American air power at bay and prevent U.S. forces from establishing a foothold, they could drastically shift the balance in any future conflict.
So our power really comes from our aircrafts? We do be dropping bombs on this. We do be dropping them bombs, so it might not be too far-fetched. We need bombs aren't going to cut it no more. We need something more. We need something more spontaneous, like lasers.
Both ends, China began breakneck development on entirely new anti-ship and ballistic missiles. In just a matter of years, China had expanded the reach of its missile weapons from a few hundred miles to over 1,000. China's YJ-21, a hypersonic anti-ship missile, has a range of just shy of 1,000 miles. Named the Eagle Strike 21, it's designed specifically to eliminate American ships. With an even longer range, the DF-26 can reach out and hit targets over 3,100 miles away, putting traditionally safe American bastions of power, like Guam, well within range of Chinese weapons. And this is a wake-up call to anyone predicting future warfare in the year 2050. If missile development continues along the avenue it's currently on, it won't be long before conventionally armed missiles can accurately strike targets thousands of miles away, even all the way to the American homeland. America's invulnerability shield is about to be stripped away forever, so it's time to build a real one instead. Currently, the only threats that can realistically target the American homeland during war are nuclear weapons and perhaps a missile strike by a conventional guided missile submarine. When it comes to nuclear weapons, the threat is nothing new. The U.S. has been under the shadow of nuclear annihilation since the early days of the Cold War. But in reality, no one is reckless enough to launch a direct nuclear strike on America. Mutually assured destruction guarantees it. The U.S. possesses enough nuclear firepower to ensure that any such attack would be the last move humanity ever makes. In the second case, it's not impossible that an enemy-guided missile submarine could get close enough to launch an attack against homeland targets. The U.S. converted a number of its own Ohio-class nuclear ballistic missile submarines to conventional missiles instead, effectively turning them into stealthy arsenal ships capable of firing as many as 154 Tomahawk cruise missiles. And they can also hold 2 platoons of Special Operations Forces to deliver them rapidly and stealthily to a hostile coastline. Just one of these submarines has enough conventional firepower to cripple a small nation. However, such an enemy submarine would have a long stretch of ocean to cross undetected, and an attack would almost certainly be a one-way trip for the sub and its crew. This makes it an unappealing option for an enemy, but soon they won't need a costly submarine to strike deep into American territory. China has already demonstrated intercontinental precision, conventional capability with its fractional orbital hypersonic vehicle test. This missile test sent a hypersonic vehicle which could be armed with either a conventional or nuclear warhead orbiting around the planet before re-entering the atmosphere to strike its target. Right now, such a weapon is far too expensive to be used for widespread conventional attacks. However, it is entirely possible.
So they made a rocket that shoots into the sky, into space. That shit comes around and shoots right back. They should have called that bitch the slingshot. But that's a crazy. If you had multiple of those, that'd be crazy. But then again, like he said, if someone shoots a nuke at us, and right now it depends on who's crazy enough to push that big red button to make this whole world go klabooey. Because if you're not in first, you're last.
That China would be willing to use one of these weapons against a high-value
And
target,
who wants to be
whether
last?
that's an aircraft carrier in port or the headquarters of a major U.S. defense contractor. But that's exactly the threat predicted by the U.S. Air Force. These weapons will only grow in capability and reach, while becoming cheaper and easier to produce and field. And it's not just China that's the problem. Russia will likely eventually develop similar capabilities too. As the technology proliferates around the world, even smaller countries could begin to have access to conventional weapons with enough reach to target the American homeland. And then there's the other boogeyman in the room, the weaponization of space. Technically, placing weapons in space is against international agreements. The outer...
Bruh, imagine if niggas start having war in space. Wouldn't that be crazy? Like, that... Just start having Death Stars and goddamn all these fast flying ships. It's gonna be Star Wars for real. Niggas shooting beams, laser beams everywhere, lightsabers. Damn. If only I was going. If only I'd be alive to see it, cause that's gonna be like thousands of years into the future, probably.
First Space Treaty of 1967 was meant to prevent a space arms race before it could even begin. But the treaty has serious loopholes. And then there's the fact that some nations simply don't care. Russia, for example, has routinely broken international agreements, violating multiple treaties just in the last decade. In fact, intelligence suggests that Russia may already be in major violation of the Outer Space Treaty, potentially deploying a nuclear-powered anti-satellite weapon that's orbiting the Earth right now. The treaty does explicitly prohibit the development of weapons of mass destruction, both in orbit and on celestial bodies. This clause was meant to prevent the catastrophic escalation that would come from the US and the Soviet Union placing nuclear weapons directly over each other's homelands. This is what served as the basis for Ronald Reagan's famous Star Wars project, a missile shield that would keep America safe by intercepting nuclear weapons in orbit. The project was as controversial as it was ambitious. While discussed, nobody had actually tried to build a space-based defense shield for one simple reason: if it was successful, it would destabilize relations by upending nuclear detente. At that moment, peace between the US and the Soviet Union largely rested on the fact that each nation could wipe each other and the world off the map. The announcement of America's space shield ignited a new arms race with the Soviet Union. Fearing that the US might become immune to nuclear attack, the Soviets scrambled to build up a conventional military advantage to offset the shift in power. But this desperate military buildup came at a cost. With an economy already on the brink, the Soviet Union's massive defense spending spiral only accelerated.
Imagine we're building stuff on the moon right now. Just think about it. If we are going against the Soviet Union to the moon, I think niggas are flying on the moon right now. I'm not gonna lie, them niggas is trying to go crazy. Cause think about it, if you have control of the moon, you can destroy the Earth. That's crazy. They can literally make some type of space station, whatever the hell, build a big ass rocket, laser beam, something, aiming at the Earth, klabooey. And whoever's the only people who's going to live is the people who's coming to the moon before they do it, or they probably already got everybody on the moon that needs to be there, or they're waiting for a couple others, and as soon as they get on there, klabooey. Cause who's gonna stop it? Crazy to think about.
Accelerated its downfall, pushing the nation's overcooked economy into total collapse. In the end, Star Wars was more smoke and mirrors than a serious military effort. As every expert at the time concluded, the technology required was simply too advanced. That is no longer the case. And the only way that America of 2050 can remain safe might be to build a real-life Star Wars missile shield today. While America...
Hold on. I'm gonna be alive in 2050. Hopefully in shape and all that, cause I don't want to be a fat Oh man. So whatever we need to do now, we need them to do it. So I was saying, I don't gotta worry about a nuclear bomb about to drop on my head. I need to get a bunker.
America's new missile shield is often compared to Israel's Iron Dome. The truth is, it'll end up becoming something far more complicated and expensive than Israel's missile shield. There's a bit of a misnomer when it comes to Israel's Iron Dome, as people tend to refer to it to explain the overall missile shield that Israel enjoys, and recently demonstrated to be extremely effective. In reality, Iron Dome is only one small part of the overall shield, and the very last line of defense, in fact. The Iron Dome can only intercept rockets, artillery, drones, and missiles at a range of up to 43 miles. Before incoming enemy weapons get there, though, they have to pass through other layers of defense. The outermost layer is Israel's THAAD, or Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System. Purchased from the US, THAAD is designed to knock out targets both inside and outside of the atmosphere, at ranges of up to 124 miles. Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 knockout missiles flying through the upper atmosphere as high as 31 miles, while David's Sling can knock out ballistic missiles up to 186 miles away. Meanwhile, the Iron Dome is programmed to track incoming missiles and only fire interceptors if it detects the missiles will threaten built-up areas. How effective is Israel's missile shield? On October 1st, 2024, Iran launched 200 missiles at Israel. The only casualty Iran managed to inflict was against a Palestinian man on the ground who was struck by missile debris. Granted, Israel was being supplemented by the missile defense capabilities of allies, but that is the entire point of having friends in the first place. Likewise, America's missile shield will work a lot like Israel's, only on steroids. There are no official plans yet, but we can make some educated guesses about its capabilities and design. Currently, the entire project is undergoing a 60-day review. After this, the Secretary of Defense will present a comprehensive plan outlining the requirements for a nationwide missile shield, the best deployment strategy, and the physical architecture of the system. While the specifics remain uncertain, one thing is clear: America is taking this threat seriously. The project has already come under some controversy, as it marks a major foreign policy shift for the United States. Up until now, the U.S. has sought to carefully balance its defense without upending nuclear detente, the tried-and-true means by which peace between major powers has been kept since the end of World War II. That's why the U.S. has only deployed small numbers of THAAD units. Each of these deployments has been met with wide protests by nations like China, who see it as directly undermining their capability to deter the U.S. via retaliation. This was the controversy surrounding the original Strategic Defense Initiative, and it remains the controversy of America's modern missile shield. Yet, as many have argued, missile defense...
So niggas is hating because we want to build a missile shield. I don't understand. How you getting mad because we up in the defenses and you just want to make it a point like, oh, even if y'all do make it, we'll just make something to destroy it. You know what I'm saying? So, hey. You niggas gotta stop hating, bro. Let us build the shield. But the only thing about the shield is that if they make a shield, right, couldn't they like technically like trap everyone in who's ever there? Like they can make it to where you can't leave. Maybe don't build the shield. Make like a net. Yeah, let's make a net so we can get through the cracks.
Is too vital to let Cold War-era nuclear norms stand in the way of its development. And those voices may be right. The weapons of tomorrow will have no problem crossing an ocean to get to U.S. factories, government buildings, and commercial centers. America's missile shield is expected to be made up of several key components. The first will be the use of space-based interceptors. This is one of the most controversial aspects of the shield, as it'll mean putting some form of kinetic interceptor in space. The reason is simple: by putting interceptors in space, they can respond faster to an enemy missile attack and have a greater chance of knocking said missiles out. But the controversy comes from breaking the taboo of placing kinetic weapons in space. It could become a weapon of mass destruction if large enough and with no explosive payload. Originally called rods from God, An old Cold War concept for a space-based kinetic weapon involved putting
Okay.
telephone pole-sized tungsten rods into space and simply letting them free fall onto a target. These rods would strike with enough energy to mimic the blast of a small nuclear weapon. Next will be the development of a space-based sensor network. The US already has a global missile alerting network that's sensitive enough to detect even small anti-ship missile launches, but a future system will need to be both larger and more resilient. At the moment, all of America's military space infrastructure is under threat from Chinese and Russian anti-satellite weapons, and this threat is only expected to grow with time. A future missile defense network will need to move away from high-cost, single-point failures and instead rely on swarms of lower-cost, less sophisticated assets. By networking these systems together into massive kill webs, the US can create a defense network that is too large and too decentralized for an enemy to effectively neutralize. Along with a new space-based sensor layer, the US will need communications infrastructure that is just as dispersed and just as reliant. America's future missile shield can't even have one bad day on the job. To ensure that never happens, it has to ensure that the US can communicate quickly, securely, and reliably with forces around the world and in space. Once more, this will be about dispersing assets in orbit rather than relying on the traditional approach of highly...
They're making this seem like if we build this, America taking over the world. Oh my God. That's crazy.
capable but extremely expensive individual satellites. A new American space infrastructure will connect directly to assets on Earth and in space, making use of various platforms to intercept enemy missiles at different stages of flight. U.S. Navy ships are currently the backbone of American ballistic missile defense and will likely remain so due to their mobility. The future missile shield will be able to coordinate a response between Navy ships and Army Patriot batteries, along with as yet undeveloped interceptor technologies. And this brings us to the last component of America's missile shield: non-kinetic defense capabilities. A big problem with conventional missile defense is both the difficulty of intercept and the number of interceptors available. Typically, a U.S. warship will fire 2 interceptors at each incoming missile threat for safety. However, as enemy capabilities advance, the threat is no longer just individual missiles, it is swarms of missiles, drones, or even coordinated attacks using both. With the ability to overwhelm defenses through sheer numbers, it's becoming clear that conventional kinetic interceptors alone won't be enough to get the job done anymore. Especially not when the incoming threat may only cost a few $100,000 or even just a few thousand if it's a drone, and the intercepting missile has a price tag of over $1 million. This is why a big emphasis is being placed on the development of alternative non-kinetic means of destroying enemy missiles. This includes concepts such as directed energy weapons or lasers, which could be used both in the atmosphere and outside of it. Whatever form America's missile shield takes, one thing is clear: your neighborhood could end up looking like a war zone, even if the actual fighting is taking place thousands of miles away. America's historical invulnerability will soon be a thing of the past, unless the U.S. takes steps to defend itself today. Do you think a nationwide missile shield will make America safer, or could it trigger a new arms race? And how effective do you think it'll be?
Do you guys think we should build this? I don't know. I don't care about all the bullshit they talking about. I'm thinking on like something that can be, if it falls into like the wrong hands type shit, type of deal. Like, imagine if they build an actual dome like around the US or whatever. They can make it to where you wouldn't be able to leave. They could trap you inside. So you would need to, then it'll be blocking the sun rays and shit like that. So yeah, it's a lot of bad things that can happen. But on the flip side, if it was to be, and isn't that how goddamn the Hunger Games is with the dome and shit? Like, hell nah. Fuck no. Yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. We're back at it like a crack addict. Fanatic. Keep it going? No, let's stop at it. But As you guys can already know what I'm about to say, just like, comment, subscribe. The original video will be the first link in the description box below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, I'm out, man.